Hello there, welcome back to our show. Today I'm going to talk about the Banshees of Inisherin, the Martin McDonagh film that's up for a lot of Oscars. And it's that rare Oscar contender that's actually worth a damn. That's the kind of weird thing, it's like the Oscars tend to have films that are worthy but kind of boring, and ultimately they tend to get a lot of attention because they avoid anything that interesting, really, is a big thing with them. They're just like, there's no nuance to them. Like, you probably notice that most people never win Oscars for the best work. The films that might be more controversial and released, the last, I don't know the ones that win the Oscars, it's that they do a kind of bland film that win an Oscar. I mean, it's Scorsese won for The Departed, which was basically a remake of Infernal Affairs, which was a much superior film. That's the idea of giving an Oscar, is like, give it to something that's bland. I mean, it's just like, I lost all interest in Oscars in the 90s, so I was actually surprised when I watched this one. It was a really good film that's actually up for, consideration. I mean, Parasite was the same thing. I mean, it's like, wow, 2 in a decade, that's not bad for the Oscars. They seem, maybe they're trying to up their game a little bit. I'm kidding, but we know the Oscars, things that tend to hype up. A lot of times films you end up looking at and going, really? That's what you think is the best one? I could count 20 without even thinking that are superior. This is actually one that's actually like Parasite level of, it might not be the best of the director, but it's really, really good. It's a really good film. You can recommend to anyone saying, you should watch this. And if the person doesn't like it, you just think, I think about less of you. Type of thing. But I really liked the Banshees of Inisherin. I've liked all the directors' films so far. I mean, his weakest is Seven Psychopaths, which I kind of liked actually, but it seems to be the one that everyone seems to be down on, including the director himself. I mean, the one he did with Frances McDormand and Woody Harrelson, whose name is the Three Billboards one, is very good. And Bruges is terrific. I'm like Seven Psychopaths. Such a weird title. It's a very self-referential film, and he tends to have moved away from that and actually have been much more about what his strengths are, which is strange character beats that are based on characters who are understandable, ambitions are understandable, or frustrations are understandable, and then twisting the narrative in subtle ways that are still relatable. And never having a protagonist or an antagonist that's fully bad or fully good. There's like, he got in trouble with Three Billboards by having Sam Rockwell's character, who was a racist, actually have an arc, that was human and identifiable, which was the point of art, which is actually take a character who initially you think, ugh, and actually show them to be human and show them to have complexities. And it's like, that's what he does. It's like, in this one, it's about two friends who were living on this island, who've been close friends for a long time, and then one day, one of them, played by Brendan Gleeson, tells the other one, you're boring. Another person, played by Colin Farrell, and basically, I don't want to talk to you anymore, you're wasting my time. And so it's a friendship that splits apart because of one person just gets fed up with the other one. And then, of course, it spirals out into insanity after that. But insanity within the limits of what this community is. And also, one of the points of the film is, this is the thing that takes everyone's focus, because it gets very melodramatic. But it's not actually the truly difficult stories. There's another story in there about a young man who's actually been abused by his policeman father, and there's like Colin Farrell's sister who's living a life of depression within the island because she's not really been challenged and she's the smartest person there. And she's kind of the person that Brendan Gleeson's character really kind of wants to be, ultimately. So these other stories that are kept under the surface, but they're the ones that should be of more interest to the people around them, but they're not, and that's the point of the film, is they're not. Like, like everyone else, we go to the melodramatic thing that's actually probably is less nuanced than the actual thing that's actually much more disturbing and much more difficult to handle. So they go for the melodramatic, two friends are falling out. And that becomes their focus, that becomes a gossip, and that becomes the thing. And this thing gets built up and goes crazy, but there's the things that really should be dragging attention that isn't is because no one wants to face the other stuff. No one wants to deal with the other stuff. The stuff that's actually more difficult to deal with. Because ultimately, it's about two characters throwing rocks at each other. Ultimately, metaphorical rocks at each other. And so it kind of looks at the kind of layers of dysfunction within a seemingly at ease community. And like, where does it lead to? Like, where does insanity lead? So it's a terrific film because it doesn't make its point that these are the big important points. It's actually, no, you have to work this out for yourself. You have to kind of look at it and go, this is my interpretation of it. You'd have your own interpretation. But the big thing is, it's so well written, but it's not flashily written. And it's well directed, but it's not flashily directed. It's directed the way it should be directed. The points are made clearly, and you can understand the points, but it's not pushing in your face. It's not trying to be a big melodramatic thing. It's like, the situation's melodramatic, that's enough, and then to the actual camera goes with the characters and enjoys some of the visualizations of what goes on. But it's never really, it's not doing the De Palma thing of, which I love, the kind of big melodramatic twists and things. It doesn't do that. It's actually much more measured in how it approaches these things. But it means it allows you to be much more distanced from it. It's much more of a Paul Pressburger thing, really, when they're doing the naturalistic things like I Know Where I'm Going, or, you know, the one about the bomb disposal guy, where it's like there are some moments of, you know, more stylized things, but generally it's a lot more grounded. But you do get a sense of the supernatural world floating perhaps below the surface. And also, like Paul Pressburger's, it's really well written and well acted, and people have been chosen properly for the parts, and they deliver, and they're not doing the same thing again and again. Because one thing you notice about a lot of actors is they're pretty much hired to do the same job again and again and again. If it works, you're doing that for the next 20 years because it pays, so you can just go do that. And this one, people go against type. I mean, Brendan Gleeson tends to, even though he's played villains before, there is a kind of thing as people like him as an actor, so there tends to be with him, unless he's playing outright villain, as someone who's sane. Someone who's the sane point of the film. Well, that's my impression of a lot of films you see him in. He seems to be the person who is the voice of sanity within a story, and to a degree, maybe because he's an actor, he projects someone who's been around a lot and who's won't take any guff from anybody. And this one, he's irrational. He's completely irrational, and he's absolutely off his rocker. But because it's Brendan Gleeson and he's got that era of rationality, it takes you a while to realise how mad he's gone. So it takes his type, his persona, and actually uses it against. So it uses it so you don't get where the character's actually at. Your preconceptions of the actor actually blind you from the reality of what's up with him. You know, more or less the same way his persona to other characters blinds some of them from what's going on with them. And Colin Farrell tends to play characters they do have a bit of a charm to him, because as an actor he's got a charm to him. In this one he plays a guy who everyone thinks is dull, who has no charm. And as an actor, Farrell's actually been one of those actors who started out as a pretty boy, but went out to prove himself. So he's actually worked with real directors and pushed himself. He's had some disasters like Alexander, but He's had some great stuff like Miami Vice. He's worked with McDonald quite a few times. He's worked with Lanthimos and The Lobster and the other one, Nicole Kidman, whose name I've now just completely forgotten. Killing a Sacred Deer. So he's pushed himself. He was in the Batman as a penguin for lots of prosthetics. He tends to be an actor, he done it after Yang, he tends to be an actor who tries things. So sometimes you'll see him pop up in a film and why is he in this film? And it's just like, well, maybe he was trying something. But, you know, really, like, he's an actor who seems to, as he's older, is like, I'll just try stuff. But a lot of his parts have charm to him, and this character is the opposite. He has no charm, he's dull, and everyone just thinks of him as nice. He's nice. He's not intelligent, he's nice, but he's very basic person. The kind of person who, if you're in a conversation with them, after a while you find a reason to get away from them because they're not particularly interesting. And that's what frustrates the Brendan Gleeson character, because he's like dealt with him for years, and he hasn't had the guts basically to tell him to get lost, or to find a rational mix of things. I'm interested in these other things. I'll hang out with you sometimes, but other times I'll go do this other thing. And do it gradually, and done it like a sane person would do it. Instead, Brendan Gleeson's character says one day, I'm not your friend anymore, I'm done with you. Like a crazy person, because of Brendan Gleeson, you think, oh, there must be some sort of mysterious reason for it. And it's actually about things we can all understand, just the kind of feelings of, like, where's my life going? Am I a nobody? You know, a sense of depression of where your life's headed. And it's a kind of thing where he's embracing his darker side of his personality and being more selfish because he hasn't done it for years. Now he's finding he can strut that a little bit more. And it's a reaction against depression and feelings of lack of self-worth. And he basically takes it out on other people. And his best pal can't work that out, and his best pal was so loyal, was like a little dog to him, that causes craziness as the film goes on, and causes chain reactions to these other stories I've talked about, the sister and the young boy, played by Barry Keane, who's also in Killing a Sacred Deer, and you'll recognise the face. So it's a story that's complicated, and everything kind of comes from this melodramatic centre, but the actual other stories are actually harder to get at, where they are in life, really. The ones that actually have deeper problems. And as you find out as the story goes on, the Brendan Gleeson character maybe not be as deep as he thinks he is, but he's so determined to go down this route. But he kind of knows that the sister character is much smarter than them. She's the level where he would love to be, and it's like he may not actually be as good as he hopes he is, and he's so self-destructive about certain things. There's like a lot of his reactions to Colin Farrell character seems to be there could be sense of determination, but also are definitely self-destruction. Definitely a thing of I am probably scared of my own limitations too. There's lots of issues going on there that's actually makes it interesting. It's like it's not explaining some monologue. It's just like the actions suggest other things that are more interesting than what he's ever saying. The same with Colin Farrell thing is he starts to learn how to get a bit darker as things go on, as he's unreasonable in some ways but reasonable in other ways, basically as someone who's been your close friend for so long and then they just reject you entirely. That's going to cause a reaction. It's going to take a long time to figure it out, and you're going to make mistakes dealing with that person. And if the other person is behaving irrationally, it's going to get crazy. So it's kind of like a divorce movie, but between two men who are pals rather than a marriage. But it is kind of a divorce movie. And the problems of this separation really causes tidal waves through these other stories. So it's really terrific, because there's just a lot going on in it that's not on the surface. And the other performers know what they're doing, they all know exactly what characters they're playing. There's a nice dark sense of humour throughout it. Kerry Condon as a sister is terrific. it's just a really well made film, and it's one of those films. There's a lot there that you can actually look back on and actually rewatch and find more nuances to. So this one's really terrific. This one's really wonderful. It's definitely worth seeing because it's too good for the Oscars. The way I'm thinking about it is like, this is too good to be nominated. This is just way more classy of a film than normally gets the attention, you know. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you go watch this film. There's a good chance you've already seen it because everyone's seen this film already. It's on Disney Plus. It's on all the streaming services. It's been in cinema. I'm probably one of the last people to see it who are interested in this kind of film. So that's why I thought I could get away with actually going into some detail on it, because I was thinking everyone's seen this one. So hope you enjoyed the video. I'll be back soon with another one. Right, bye for now.